Good evening, everyone. I know some of you are still finishing your meals. Please go ahead. And I believe, as you heard earlier, the bar remains open, so you may want to take advantage of that as well. It is truly wonderful to see everyone here tonight. We have a marvelous opportunity this evening to enjoy a moment of friendship with colleagues. So, on behalf of the university, let me welcome you to the 2011-2012 Distinguished Faculty Dinner. In just a few moments, we're going to recognize our distinguished professors who are in attendance this evening. And of course, we'll be recognizing those who are receiving special awards for governance, for teaching, for research and scholarship, and for service. And then we will recognize the person receiving this year's Distinguished Professor Award. Before we get to those important matters, let me take just a moment and recognize some very special guests this evening. Please hold your applause until I presented all of these guests. I want to begin with our members of the Board of Trustees who are in attendance this evening. So let me recognize Dr. Randall Dozier, who's here, Randy, and Tracy Freeman, Tracy, George McIntyre, George, and Mr. W.C. Stanton. Let's give all these folks a round of applause. Very quickly, let me recognize those at the head table this evening, beginning on my left, your right, Dr. Pamela Rooks, who is, of course, the head of our AAUP chapter, and with her is Dr. John Rooks, and then Mrs. Folly Carter, President Carter, and then to my right, Derek Yokish, Marilyn Chapman, and of course, Professor Keith Best. So that is our head table this evening. Now let me call upon Professor Keith Best to come forward and to recognize some distinguished members in attendance here this evening. Professor Best.
Thank you, Dr. Chapman. Welcome to the 2011-2012 Distinguished Professor Dinner. Always a wonderful time where we have at least an hour or so to relax here at the end of the busiest part of the semester when our stress level is high. So feel free to have another glass of wine or two or three. Thank you for coming tonight. This is the night when we honor those retiring from the Francis Marion University community, as well as celebrate with the recipients of several awards soon to be announced. But it's also a time for us to welcome back fondly previous recipients of the Distinguished Professor Award from years past. Let's take time now to honor those among us who are previous winners of this most prestigious faculty award at Francis Marion, those whose hard work and commitment exemplifies the excellence to which we all aspire. I'll ask all distinguished professors to rise as I call your names, and we'll hold our applause until the end. 1979 to 1980, Dr. Tom Roop. 1980 to 1981, Dr. Roger W. Allen, Bucky Allen. 1981 to 1982, Dr. Dwayne P. Myers. They're conglomerating in one area. 1982 to 1983, Dr. Marion H. Cusack Green. 1983 to 1984, Dr. Harlan G. Hawkins. 1985 to 1986, Dr. Julia E. Krebs. 1987 to 1988, Dr. E. Lorraine de Montlezun. 1991 to 1992, Dr. Jackson F. Lee Jr. 1992 to 1993, Dr. Ben Kyer. 1993 to 1994, Dr. Eileen Curley Talon. 1994 to 1995, Dr. David M. Peterson. 1988 to 1999, Dr. George Eddie Harding III. 1999 to 2000, Dr. R. Sethfield Smith. 2000 to 2001, Dr. M. Barry O'Brien. 2001 to 2002, Dr. Mary H. McNulty. 2004 to 2005, Dr. James Tommy Ramey Jr. 2005 to 2006, Dr. Benjamin Woods. 2006 to 2007, Dr. Pamela A. Rooks. 2007 to 2008, Mr. A. Glenn Gorley. 2010 to 2011, Dr. Kenneth M. Autry. And in this past year, Dr. Derek W. Yokish. With President Carter's assistance, I'd now like to recognize faculty members who are retiring this year and who have been granted faculty emeritus status. Several of these individuals have spent their entire careers at Francis Marion University, and cumulatively, their contributions are far greater than this brief recognition can begin to suggest. Retirees are traditionally given an FMU rocking chair, such as the one you see over by Derek Yokish. This gift in no way implies that you are required to take it easy, but we certainly hope you enjoy it as you approach this new part of your life. As I read your names and acknowledge your careers at Francis Marion University, I invite you each to come forward. Dr. Kenneth R. Dye Jr. received his PhD in counselor education from the University of South Carolina. He first joined the faculty at Francis Marion University in 1972. He left us for a bit in 1997 and then came back in 2002 for a total of 34 years at Francis Marion University. He retires as an assistant professor of education. Dr. John C. Sutton received his PhD in English from the University of Tennessee. He arrived at Francis Marion in 1987. Is John here? And retires as a professor of English. Is John here? He must not be here. Dr. Jeffrey Pompey came to Francis Marion in 1988. He received his PhD in economics from Florida State University and retires as the Nellie Cook Sparrow Professor of Business and Professor of Economics. Congratulations to our Professors Emeriti. Also retiring this year is Ms. Jane E. Gower. Jane joined Francis Marion University in 1992. A graduate of North Carolina State University, she retires as an associate professor of mathematics. Now, Dr. Pamela Rooks, president of the local chapter of the AAUP, will present this year's Charlene Wages Shared Governance Award.
The Charlene Wages Shared Governance Award is given by the Francis Marion University chapter of the American Association of University Professors in recognition of outstanding contributions to shared governance at Francis Marion University. In bad times, this year's recipient was a stalwart guardian of faculty rights. In good times, he has been a faculty leader to whom colleagues looked for both wisdom and common sense. He leads not one, but two academic units, the Department of Psychology and the Richardson Center for the Child. The 2012 Charlene Wages Award goes to Dr. John R. Hester.
We now turn to the faculty awards presented annually for outstanding teaching, research, and service. Again, I'll ask for President Carter's assistance. The first award recipient came to the university in 2005 from the University of Tennessee and has taught both undergraduate and graduate courses in the Department of Psychology. In the Family Relationships Lab, she works with student research assistants who have presented posters at international and regional conferences. The recipient of QEP grants, those funds have been used to fund learning experiences for undergraduate students in her area. This year's teaching award goes to Dr. Farrah Moore Hughes. The winner of the Research and Scholarship Award has published two books, most recently one in 2011, has over a dozen articles published, over 24 reviews and review essays in scholarly journals, and 36 presentations. The focus of his work is in the specialty area of 18th century literature, but he has also given presentations on administrative practices, mentoring programs, composition, and pedagogy. This year's award for research and scholarship goes to Dr. Christopher Dyer Johnson. The next award recipient came to Francis Marion University in 2004 and has been very busy ever since. He currently serves on several committees within his department and also in the School of Education. As the current director of the Swamp Fox Writing Project, he is responsible for long-term planning and budgeting, publicity, consultations with area teachers and administrators, and coordinating professional development offerings for area K-12 schools. This year's award for professional service goes to Dr. Matthew C. Nelson. I turn the podium over to Dr. Yokish.
The Distinguished Professor Award for 2011-2012 is presented to a faculty member in recognition of his or her excellence in teaching, scholarship, and service. This year's recipient of the award has earned the respect of the entire Francis Marion University community. Through exceptional teaching, admirable scholarship, and unstinting professional service, this year's recipient has made notable contributions to the university and its students. Since joining the faculty of Francis Marion University, this year's distinguished professor has demonstrated that he is an inspiring classroom instructor whose classes are both challenging and engaging. In the words of one of his colleagues, he is a selfless teacher dedicated to our students. The 2011-2012 Distinguished Professor has produced an imposing record of presentations and publications. His scholarly activity includes 2 edited volumes, over 30 conference presentations, and more than 40 published articles, essays, and reviews. His work has made him an internationally recognized scholar in his field. This year's Distinguished Professor has compiled a record of professional service that is extensive and significant. Since joining the FMU faculty in 1996, he has been the leader of a large and diverse department and has served on a wide variety of university governance committees. In April 2011, he received the Charlene Wages Shared Governance Award, and just a few moments ago, he received the Faculty Research Award. The 2011-2012 Distinguished Professor earned his Bachelor of Arts degree in 1986 from Villanova University, his MA in English in 1988, and his PhD in English in 1991 from the University of Delaware. Therefore, in recognition of his excellence in teaching, his scholarly and professional achievements, and his dedicated service to Francis Marion University, the Distinguished Professor Award for 2011-2012 is presented to the Chair of the Department of English, Modern Languages, and Philosophy, Dr. Christopher D. Johnson.
Well, thank you. Quite an evening. I certainly want to thank the folks who nominated me and the folks on the committee. This is a tremendous honor. And, of course, working at Francis Marion University is a tremendous honor. Being a part of this faculty has been the greatest privilege of my professional life, and I can't tell you how proud I am to come into work every day, and how happy I am to work with colleagues who are generous, patient, engaging, who by their very example and their professionalism push me to be the best professor that I can be. I'm also very grateful that we have such a wonderful administration. It was just a couple of weeks ago that I was at a conference having dinner with some friends from universities at different places, and as the evening wore on, folks began complaining about their universities, and we were hearing tales of misguided deans and bad provosts, ill-chosen presidents, and after a little while, someone looked over and noted that I was uncharacteristically quiet. And I thought to myself, I've got nothing. And I thought if I really tell them what it's like to work with Rich Chapman and Fred Carter, they're going to feel that much worse about themselves when they go back to work on Monday morning. But we're also so thankful to work for such a great university and work with such a great administration. We've heard about some impressive accomplishments tonight in teaching and service and in lots of different areas. None of those would be possible without the unflagging support that we receive from this administration. So tonight I'm very grateful, I am very humbled, and I'm also very honored. Thank you very much.
Normally at this time, the provost would make closing remarks, but I begged him for a few moments for myself. At the conclusion of this academic year, graduation aside, this is my last official function as chair of the faculty, and my last chance to address you personally. So I'd like to take a moment to thank some people. I'd first of all like to personally thank my fellow officers, Becky Flanagan and Glenn Gorley, the vice chair and secretary, who are also the chair-elect and the vice chair-elect, and who, along with Larry Englehart, your secretary-elect for next year, I think will do an excellent job. I thank them very much for their hard work and their wisdom through my tenure as chair. Also, those chairs who came before me, Dr. Charlene Wages and Dr. Ken Autry, both who served sort of as a mentor for me, and from whom I learned a great deal and for whom I have great respect. I'd also like to thank the administrative staff and the presidents in the provost's office, Ashley Jacobs, Rainey Gamble, and Gloria Keefe, as we all know, deserve a great deal of credit for how smoothly this university operates. And every time I get thanked for how well something goes, I think of them. So thank you. Of course, I must thank the president and the provost and the rest of the senior staff. There is one major reason that faculty governance holds the importance it does on this campus, and that's President Fred Carter. And one of the major reasons the system works so well is Provost Richard Chapman. Thank you. And lastly, let me say once again what a great privilege it has been for me to hold this position for the last 4 years. Tonight's award recipients are just a few highlighted figures among a stellar group of scholars. Your accomplishments, though, are just one part of what makes me so proud to be a member of this community. Your integrity, your kindness, and your commitment to this institution and its students have inspired me these past few years and continue to inspire me as we move forward. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our program. We thank you all for coming, and we wish you a good evening.